Hey, what's going on, Jose? Or how do I say it? Jose? How do I say it, man?
Jose.
Oh,
Jose, but you can just call me Shorty.
Shorty. All right. Um, yeah. So, how you been, man? How was your Christmas?
I've been good. I've been, trying my best to stay productive, especially towards the end of the year
Hmm.
with COVID and fights, and just trying to find different ways and sources of revenue to make money. But man, everything's been good. It was nice. It was a nice little break to be able to go home, spend time with family, quality time, and a much needed break. And then, I mean, it's food, festivities, so having a blast, man. Definitely having a good time. What about you?
Oh, we just where I'm from. I live in Ontario, and we just had another lockdown for a month. Starting with Toronto, and now it's like in our region. So,
Hmm.
it wasn't like the best Christmas in the world, but I was fortunate enough to spend time with the family before they had the initial lockdown. So that's currently where we're staying in right now. But yeah, I'm glad to hear it. Like, what? So you're like from Chicago, right? Or you're
Hmm.
currently living there, or what's going on?
So I'm from Chicago. I technically do live there, resident wise, but I do most of my training camp down in Florida. So
Hmm.
my life is usually for the past 5 years, give or take. It's been like stay down in Florida for 2 to 3 months for a training camp, go back up for a week or two, do it again, and just vice versa, keep on going back and forth. So I guess if you want to say I'm now technically possibly considered a Floridian, as much as I hate to say that, but I'm here majority of the year.
Nice, nice. So you got like the chance to like spend time with the family and everything for Christmas. Like, do you have any plans? Do you have any plans for New Year's at all, or what's
Um, it's crazy because I did get to go spend time with family, which is always much needed and definitely much appreciated. Because I love my family to death. They do the same, especially because I'm gone so much. Just spending some type of time with them, whether it's good or bad, just time with them is awesome.
yeah.
But and we definitely know there's always bad times with family. My big brother, I want to punch him in the face. But with that being said, no, for me for New Year's, um, doing I'm just doing me. Everyone's trying to look for a date to kiss at the new year and doing this, doing that. I'm like, man, because I'm in Florida, there's beaches surrounding the whole state. So I was like, maybe I'm just gonna go to the beach and ride my skateboard and just cruise, just kind of be by myself, kind of reassess my own feelings towards myself,
Mhm.
and really kind of create my own goals for next year. Hopefully, COVID doesn't happen again. But it's the fact or something new, but it's the fact of being able to really I think New Year's, especially if you are single or going through a crazy year like everyone else has in 2020, I think it's a good time to kind of reassess everything that you've been through and kind of go, damn, I made it this far. Yeah. All right, cool. Let's appreciate it and let's see what I can do next year.
Well, and you were talking about like people recessing, and hopefully we'll see good things next year. I've seen so many fighters where they've just said like fucking they're training at home right now. They bring their coaches or whatever, and they set up like mats and stuff in a kitchen or something like that, and they're training at home. I know. I'm not sure if she's still training at ATT right now, but Gillian Robertson, it looks like she's kind of doing something similar. Um,
That is my main training partner. Yeah, so uh, I live with Dean Thomas, and we all kind of left together from American Top Team, and I stay with Dean in Port St. Lucie, so it's almost Central Florida, still technically South Florida, but Jillian lives 2 blocks away, and primarily it's just us three. We do add people here and there. Right now, we have another guy named David Evans, an IMF veteran, silver and bronze medalist at Worlds, but and Greg Hardy's part of the team, and a handful of other people, but um, it's just her and I, and because we're the same weight, we train very productively together. It's been like that for almost 3 years, but at Dean's house and away from ATT, it's been like this for pretty much the entire year since maybe April or May. Um, and man, it's actually the most convenient thing. I wish I would have had this earlier. As much as I love, all these gyms I've been to, the big gyms, American Top Team, Rufus Sport, Dwayne Ludwig's, and just the list goes on. Um, this is a family. A team's great. The team's awesome. You're always going to have bodies. That's an amazing thing, especially at American Top Team. There's an abundance of bodies. The only problem is, even though there are phenomenal coaches there, you're not going to get the attention you really want and possibly even deserve, especially for all that hard work you do. So having Dean Thomas here working with Jillian and I and literally looking at us the entire time, making sure that everything is down to a T. There's a lot of, one-on-one hand guidance of like, no, you should do this, no, you should do that. And it's a proper mentorship that I believe her and I both need. And it's a great time, man. We literally, there's in the garage, there's mats. So
Yep.
I just finished practice, I cooked, and then now I'm doing this, and later on tonight, doing it again. So we go in the garage, do some work, whatever the case may be, whatever Dean has in store for us that day, and then we live out our day doing whatever we do, and then do it again.
Yeah. First off, I wanted to let you say all that, but first off, thanks for coming on the podcast, man. I meant to say at the beginning, and then we kind of got into a conversation
No
here.
problem.
I do appreciate it. And adding on to that, Gillian Robertson is incredibly strong. I've heard so many people talk like rolling with her, and they said like, yeah, she's just incredibly strong, and she's just really damn good. Actually, I had someone on my podcast. She's from she doesn't live too far from me. But she talked about going over to Florida and training with her. And she said, like, holy shit, you roll with her. And it's like unbelievable. Like
Mm-hmm.
the way
She
positions, like
she it's one of those things. So I mean, people know knee on belly. She puts literally knees on belly. She'll put both her knees on top of you. She will literally, like, it's given. She picks on me, and I do let her drill in certain situations when we are drilling,
right.
and she puts all of her weight on me. And at first she starts knee on belly, and she's kind of making you turn, but to do so, she puts all of her weight on you. And
Yeah.
so you're like, oh, I gotta move. And you're just like, you feel so much heavier than a flyweight, given she weighs, I think, at most 145, 140 usually. And me, at most, I can get up to like 160-ish, so I get pretty fat. But she feels gigantic. Like, she feels extremely heavy. And that's how you know someone's a very good jiu-jitsu practitioner, because they know how to distribute their weight on someone
Mm.
extremely well. And man, one thing like, her and I are very opposite. Besides me being the extrovert and she's the introvert, I'm primarily the striker and wrestler.
Right.
She's primarily the wrestler grappler, so when we get on the ground, like, that's her world. And then on the feet, that's primarily my world.
Yeah.
So when we start doing classes and Dean's like, all right, cool, we're doing jujitsu today. All right, Jillian, I want you to do these 5 passes, transition to position, and then we're going to submission straight from there. And then it's literally transition different things. And I'm like, all right, cool, Jillian, you go first, and I'm just 100% going to copy you, because this is going way over my head, and I need some type of guidance. So I really, really, really do look up to her when it comes to jiu-jitsu, because
Yeah.
as much as I do know jiu-jitsu and grappling, she's just at another level, so it's the respect factor with that, and accepting that, like, no matter if you're a guy, girl, whatever the case may be, younger, she's all those things. She's kind of somewhat of a guy, but she teaches me a lot. So being able to have that respect factor, and the same thing vice versa, me teaching her stand up, or even certain drills or recommendations, even on the ground, I'm telling you, like, we're a family. She's sadly the stepsister I'd never wanted. And Dean's like the father figure that we both needed, especially at this time.
Yeah, yeah, and it's nice to hear you praise a lot about her. I mean, I'm talking about her skill and her jujitsu. I mean, you see it applied in fights. Like, I mean, I think in her last fight, I think it was maybe Talia Santos. I think she,
Hmm.
if that memory corrects me, but
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, she almost had something in the first. I think it was the first round. Obviously, the second, third round, it kind of just didn't go her way. But yeah, I mean, you see her applying that in her fight, and it's like you see her and all these other girls, and there's a totally big change. And she's also evolving on her feet too, which is great to see. But I do kind of want to move forward. I from what I was told, you've trained it with TJ Dillashaw before.
I've
Yeah,
trained with if you name them, I probably have trained with them.
right, right. I mean, Florida is such a big place. There's so much opportunity to train with so many people.
Well, I mean, I've literally traveled all across the country. I
Yeah.
mean, even went to the Middle East and trained with people. So, like,
Oh,
when people were like, "Oh, who do you have between Justin Gaethje and Khabib?" I was like, "Man, I've trained with both of them." So it's like, who am I favoring more? I really thought Justin Gaethje was going to be better in the fight.
I thought,
Man,
yeah,
Khabib's just another animal, But I've trained with so many people. So besides just Florida, which American Top Team has an abundance of people, and just Florida in general, Colorado, California, Texas, Wisconsin, Chicago, Illinois, New Jersey, New York. I mean, the list goes on.
Absolutely, absolutely. And with, I mean, let's talk about this guy. So, I mean, with TJ Dillashaw, he's coming back. I wanted your
Hmm.
opinion. So, I think his suspension's up pretty soon. He's coming back. Yes, he was a champ, but unfortunately, he was caught for the EPO. So, I mean, what's your thoughts? I mean, do you think he gets the first crack at that bantamweight title? Because I can't imagine he's going back down to flyweight.
Well, he's definitely not going down the flyweight.
Yeah,
And I know he does regret it. Because of the fact of, even though he made the weight, it's one of those things where you say to people, because you can doesn't mean you should. It's like, yeah, you have the ability, and he made weight, regardless of the EPO. Like, he made weight,
he still made.
but it's the fact of, like, he just wasn't going to be there 100% mentally. I mean, he took one shot and was already kind of out of the box. He's like, oh man, I don't know what's happening, because your body's naturally dehydrated. You're not used to it. You're not used to taking that much impact compared to the bigger guys. If it was only a handful of pounds, cool, but an extra 10 pounds really does make a difference. So, with him coming back, I believe his suspension's up next month. Not 100% correct, but he's a phenomenal athlete, and training with him personally for almost, I think at the time it was like 3 camps in a row. So it was like 9 to almost a year, 9 months to a year. Man, this guy is an extremely hard worker, and he knows how to do active recovery. He knows when to take a break. He knows what to do to stay fit, stay ready, and stay committed to the sport. Like, he does have a lot in line for this, and for him, it's his resume. And TJ, no matter what people say about him, one thing is true: he's a very egotistical person, and I say this in the most positive way possible. The guy does not want to lose, and there's a reason why he was a champ twice over.
Mhm.
Before the whole EPL bust. So it's the fact that he is a phenomenal athlete. So him coming back in this return, I know the people he trains with: Flanner Gilletta, Cup Swanson, everyone in his gym, the training lab, Dwayne Ludwig's gym in Colorado, and having Dwayne fly back and forth to Anaheim, California, and then back to Colorado to work with them is an amazing thing. I think Chris Darrow is an amazing wrestling coach, one of the best wrestling coaches in the game. Mark Munoz being there as a grappling coach. And
Mhm.
man, I'm telling you, TJ is more than prepared. So for him coming back, the only difference is, you look at Ronda Rousey. I think I'm going to use her as an example. A phenomenal champion, a very dominant one at that. And then eventually there's going to be one that kind of takes you out of the game. Yeah, we could say that was Henry Cejudo for TJ, but at a different weight class, I don't really say it that way. If it was that bantamweight, maybe a little different. But the fact is, when Ronda Rousey got to the point of Holly Holm, she became a kind of a different person, and people kind of evolved to finally find her hole. And then you look at what she returned. Amanda Nunes just dominated her because she couldn't take her down. She's like, you're too one dimensional. So with TJ, man, he's a very evolved athlete, but maybe Peter Yan is going to be too much. Maybe Aljamain Sterling, the length and the wrestling is going to compete very well with TJ style. You never know. So, I've seen Corey Sandhagen spar with TJ Dillashaw. Those are really fun matches to watch. So,
They are.
is he going to be able to get the title shot immediately? I think he deserves a title contender shot as a fight first, and then go up, because he technically never lost the belt, and you can't take that away from him. So, and being a double champ, the UFC is very smart. They're a money making enterprise. So having someone come back like this and hype it up, I think it'd be a very smart decision to have TJ main event a card, and then after that, if he wins, fight for the title.
And for yourself, I mean, you're a flyweight. So talking about that flyweight division, I mean, I mean, you got this guy Davison Figueiredo. I mean, what do you think it takes for him to be a true star? I mean, the guy, he's had like I think five fight win streak. He first, I mean, he beat Benavidez like twice, like no, like there was no question.
Yeah,
There was no, there was no question.
yeah,
It. And then you had him. I think his first title defense was Alex Perez, obviously guy that you got the chance to fight, and then
mm-hmm.
he had a crazy war with um,
Brandon Moreno.
Brandon Moreno. Yeah, yeah. So I mean, this guy. I mean, I think after that war, of course, it was a draw. I mean, you've had a draw. It's not always the best feeling ever, but obviously he didn't lose either. So I mean, having that kind of, do you think his stock has totally raised? Do you think he's got kind of the recognition that flyweights should receive?
I mean, 100%. It showed how exciting our division is, especially if it goes back and forth like the Brandon Moreno fight.
Mhm.
I believe that fight was definitely too soon for Figueiredo. I'm a big guy as well, given he's definitely bigger than me and definitely a lot stronger. But for him to do this weight cut back to back is exhausting. That's I give for me the reason why I lost Alex Perez. It just wasn't there, and mentally it really does take a toll on you. And you can tell with Figueiredo, I think after the second round, and he throws almost everything into his punches, he started to die out. Maybe if he had a longer time to cut weight in actual camp for Brandon Moreno, it would have been a much different fight. But
Hmm.
because it wasn't. Brandon Moreno's always ready. That guy, I'm not saying he's tiny, given he's taller than me, but he weighs naturally maybe at most 150. Like he does get big, but for him, a weight cut was easy. And I know with him and his discipline, because I know him personally, I have trained with him personally, that guy's spot on. So I doubt after his fight, he blew up like I usually do, or even possibly Figueiredo. So I think honestly, man, Figueiredo is a star. He's just a flyweight star, if that makes any sense. We needed somebody like Colby Covington, a Conor McGregor, a Masvidal, all these people who are popular in the flyweight division. Figueiredo has now become that figure, especially knocking out Benavidez twice, which
Oh yeah.
Benavidez didn't deserve a rematch. The only reason he got a rematch because the UFC really banked on him to win so they can promote the flyweight division. He lost because of a possible headbutt, and which no one ever really cares about. And because trust me, there's plenty of more fights where headbutts have happened and they complain about it and they're like, who cares? And it just moves on. But they really banked on Benavidez to win. Figueiredo demolishes them twice. Is Benavidez' kryptonite. Then he beats Alex Perez, which was very surprising how he did it in the fashion he did.
God.
And then beating Moreno technically because it was a draw. So and if that point wasn't deducted, Figueiredo would have been the dominant champ. Instead of the champ who just got a draw in his last fight. So that fight's going to happen again. I believe it's going to be a very highly anticipated fight. But now it's full camp, seeing where things are going to go from there, and seeing how it goes. So now there is attention in the flyweight division. Flyweights are being returned from other promotions back to the UFC. I think one of the notable ones is besides Brandon Moreno is oh man, what's his name? Mateus Nicolau. Mateus Nicolau is a Brazilian. He lost to Dustin Ortiz, but dominated Lewis Smoke and I believe another guy.
Yeah.
And he got released after he lost to Dustin Ortiz. One fight, just like me, lose, you're out. And he was a part of Brave. Him and I were supposed to fight early in March before COVID hit for Brave CF. And then he just got re-signed, which, hey, man, good for him. If he's happier in the UFC, you do your thing. So it's a crazy world right now for the flyweights and just a crazy world in general for any promotion. But I think the flyweights have gotten a little more respect, but not where it's gonna be in the next few years. I think there's gonna be a lot more coming very, very soon.
Yeah, yeah, and obviously, they had that flyweight cut that you just mentioned. Were you part of that cut, or did you just get cut?
I was I was the example. I was the very first person to be cut. I'm such the example. I was the one to start the or fast track the cut of the flyweight division. So I ended up having, I had my own YouTube series inside Team Shorty, and I was making videos of just mental stuff and training camp stuff. And DJ got traded for Ben Askren to ONE FC and vice versa. It
Uh,
was dumb.
yeah, between me and you, that was the worst decision they could ever make. Like DJ, I mean, he was the face of the flyweights. No offense to you, but like he was a
Yeah, no.
weights. I mean, and to kind of train for Ben Askren, who had what 2 fights or 3 fights, sorry, and then just took off. Like, I mean, that's just I don't know. It's
It was great for ONE FC, but for the UFC, it was still a win because you look at it this way, and it's a really good marketing tactic, which I found out later on what they were doing after I got cut. It's the fact that they traded DJ because they didn't want the flyweight division. It wasn't bankable. So they had 40 to 45 guys in this roster that they're paying for every single fight. And you have to contractually have to get them a fight if they are signed.
yeah.
And you have to get them a fight in a certain amount of time. So if not, you get sued. If not, you get in trouble. And there's problems with that. So they were just pretty much getting fights that people didn't really care about. They were just kind of filling the card, and
Mhm.
no one wanted that on the card. And sadly, the UFC never promoted them. And you look at Sergio Pettis versus Benavidez, that should have been a co-main event, main event show like all these other fights are happening, but they were in the UFC Fight Pass prelims before ESPN Plus came in. And it's like, what the hell are you guys doing? These guys are numbered, I think it was 2 and 3. And if Pettis would have won, he would have got the title shot. And you're going to make this a UFC Fight Pass prelim fight? That makes no sense. So I ended up making a video of like well, if DJ's gone, we have no bankable guy besides maybe Benavidez, and no one else knows anyone in the flyweight division. And
Yeah.
maybe they're going to start cutting people. And my video was right. And I showed it to Mick Maynard. And because they got promoted by BJPenn.com, MMA Junkie, MMA Fighting, like it was great publicity, but also bad for the UFC, which you would think is never a bad thing. But I got released from it. I got put as the example of like, you got a big mouth. Yeah, you might see this, but you know what? You just lost a fight, and your first fight, you were lucky. You're cut. We don't want you. And it's like, good. Just took 2 last-minute fights from you. You gave me ultimatums, and now
Yeah.
I'm released. And then after that, once people started losing, just one fight, they started cutting people,
Yeah.
and they selectively picked who they wanted to keep and who they allowed to bump up. I wasn't allowed to bump up, nor was I kept. And given I have a much better deal with Brave CF, but it was bad. But because of the whole marketing ploy, it's like if we cut the flyweight division, there's less people we have to pay, less people we have to worry about, to get fights. And now we're saving money in general. But the fans are like, no, the flyweights are great. Why are you cutting these people? So they're now going to respectfully watch these flyweights to hopefully support them. So that means more viewers to the UFC. And if there is a highlight fight, like the Cejudo beating TJ and this last one of Figueiredo and Benavidez, or Figueiredo and well, even that Benavidez, and then the Alex Perez and Moreno, that just skyrockets the stock of the flyweight division, and that's why more people are being re-signed back. So for them, it was a win-win.
Absolutely, absolutely. And two parts. I think I mean, Cejudo was the kind of guy that kind of opened up the map with the flyweights for sure. But I mean, when you got Figueiredo, I mean, you got a guy who's not just fast like everybody else in the division, but he's fast and he's stopping everybody. And to have that
Mhm.
kind of guy to open up and show, hey, like no, these flyweights can put on a good show. And I think him and Moreno really displayed that, and I think that's great for the flyweights, for especially for you guys. But let's just kind of move on to Brave FC. I know we talked. I only got so much time with you here. So with Brave FC, I'm a little confused. So there's obviously a flyweight division there, but they don't have any champions. So what's going on with that?
So we're having a flyweight tournament, which was supposed to take part and start in March, but COVID hit.
Right.
So it's a 8-man flyweight tournament. Some of the best in the world: Dustin Ortiz, Zach Mikowski, Sean Santella, my opponent that I just drawed with, myself, and a bunch of others. Sambo world champions, Jiu-Jitsu world champions, and so far I believe 2 fights have happened. One fight had to drop because of some guy missed his weight cut, and or yeah, made weight but couldn't fight, whatever the case may be. So Zach Mikowski's in the semis. I had a draw, so we have to rematch that. Dustin Ortiz is still waiting to fight because his opponent had to pull out because of an injury last minute. But months have passed by since that. My last fight was in September, late September. So it's trying to find time to play. So because of COVID and travel restrictions, all Americans can't really travel anywhere overseas. We can't go to Europe. We can't go to certain places in Asia. We can't go to Russia. We can't do whatever. So I've been assigned a card in December, travel restrictions. I've been assigned the card in January, travel restrictions. So hopefully COVID is relieving around the world and these travel restrictions start to diminish and I'm able to, travel overseas so I can fight again. But
Yeah.
until then, this whole flyweight division stopped with not just me, but my opponent Sean, Dustin Ortiz. I think I
Yeah.
think Zach Mikowski trains at TriStar, but he's staying in Pennsylvania because Canada won't even open up the border to Americans.
No.
So he can't get over to train. So it's a fact of COVID, man, has really messed up a lot of things, but especially our flyweight tournament.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess that's the biggest issue. But I mean, like a lot of players I've talked to since they fought in the COVID era, whatever promotion they're in, they said, we love it because, you don't got people in the crowd. You actually can hear what your coach is telling you what
Mm-hmm.
to do. Problem is the cons is that the other team can hear you unless they're speaking different languages, then that's kind of your advantage. But with your last fight, I mean, so it went to a draw.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, you went to and you went in into a draw with a guy who's got twice the experience. I mean, he's got twice the amount of fights. He's like 23
Mm-hmm.
wins, 7 losses, maybe one
I,
draw.
I I think almost 3 times the amount of experience.
Almost 3 times. Yeah, yeah. I stand corrected. So does that kind of give you extended confidence? I mean, you can hang with people that are pretty much veterans of the sport.
Not really because I've always had confidence in myself, especially when I turned pro. I had 26 amateur MMA fights alone,
Right.
besides 50 to 50 Muay Thai and kickboxing fights together, hundreds of wrestling matches, and so many things beyond that. So I had the experience before I even turned pro. I mean, my second pro fight, the guy had 16 pro fights, and I was able to dominate him. I was able to create history. My third fight, I ended up claiming a world championship, defended it against a guy who was 18-2 and knocked him out in 86 seconds, and just kept on doing more. So for me, it was just kind of going, I have the experience. Pro wise, technically, number stat wise, paper wise, I don't have it, but amateur, I did. Maybe not to Sean Santella's level, but man, being able to go with him, it did kind of teach me, given we had to draw, it did teach me a lot of things about myself, given I was going through a lot of mental adversity going up to this fight. But so was he. And it's crazy to know that the next time we fight, we're both going to be 100% mentally and physically there. But his jiu-jitsu is at a whole nother level, man. Like,
Mm.
I'm very good at scrambling and very good with my jiu-jitsu defense. So for him not getting me in a submission is awesome. But he put me in positions where I just couldn't get out. And it was just him being a veteran. Like, there are a lot of things after the fight when I was talking to him, I was like, how did you know I was gonna do this? He goes, oh, usually people repeat or people do this when this happens. And I'm like, damn, yeah, that's smart. Him and I are friends. Like, there's no animosity between any of my opponents. If they
Right.
don't like me, they don't like me. But I it's a business to me. So it's just a job. It just so happens we punch each other in the face for our job. But man, when he was telling me some stuff, I'm like, damn, that's a veteran. That's only veterans would think that stuff. So um man, he's been through the game and he's been through the ringer. He's been, at the losing end, the winning end, the draws now. And it just adds to his experience, so it makes him that much more dangerous.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. So, I mean, putting you in a draw now, do you think that maybe there might be some kind of rematch or going on, or do you have someone else in mind that you like to fight? I haven't heard
Uh,
any updates or anything from your, like, if you had any fights coming up. So,
Um, no, so no fights coming up just because of the travel restrictions. It's trying to find a country that allows Americans to fly over.
mm,
But him and I are technically supposed to have a rematch. I'm surprised there wasn't like a draw contract clause in there. We're saying like, hey, if it goes to a draw in the third round, there has to be a fourth or whatever the case may be.
yeah.
Um, if that were the case, that would have been awesome. But for us, it's another payday. And for us, hopefully, one of us this time gets a win bonus and be able to advance in this tournament and see where it goes from there. So we're hoping in March. We're hoping as soon as possible. But until then, we're just waiting. We're both training and staying as productive as possible. But it's definitely 100% the rematch is going to happen.
So, like, are you telling me that you would like to fight Sean again, or what? Or is it you would just want to move on, or what? Like, what do you want?
Um, I honestly want to fight a stand-up fighter. I haven't fought a stand-up fighter in a good while. So nothing against Sean. I'd love to fight him again, but when it comes to preference, not a fan of it because his style is very, very contradictory towards mine.
Mhm.
And in the fight, he was able to hold me down in dominant positions. And for me, boring positions, and again, it's no hatred towards him. He understands that sometimes jiu-jitsu matches aren't the most, it's like wrestling in the Olympics. That's why it got released because at the time, because it wasn't exciting towards the fans. For me, I want to put on a show, I want to punch people, want to put on some gory fights, blood, all that stuff. So in a jiu-jitsu match, sometimes you don't get that, especially when you kind of, hold a position or stay in a dominant position so you can win the round. He's a very smart fighter. So he knows he doesn't have to create crazy action to win a round. He's like, if you telling me if I stay on his back, I win. It's not fun for me, but yeah, he's technically right. So um and with that being said, he's technically right, could possibly move him up to that next round because of it. So it's me being able to figure out this chess match, and I'm excited to test my skills against him, and hopefully I'm that much better. But man, I definitely would love a stand-up fighter.
Absolutely. So, if you do get a stand up fighter, what are we expecting? Are we getting a war? Or are we getting a nice first round TKO or KO?
Um, man, I've been practicing a lot, and it's whatever comes to me next. I try my best not to force stuff, and every time I try to force it, it's backfired, or it's almost happened to me, or whatever the case may be. So I think sometimes just letting it come to you and just kind of going with the flow and seeing where it goes, and just being yourself is going to be the best thing possible.
So someone's not gonna like try to lift you up and knock themselves out or anything, right?
Hopefully, we'll see. I mean, it's funny with the whole Jared Brooks thing. I
Yeah,
knew he was going to lift me, and it's happened. I saw him do it against Figueiredo, which I do believe he beat Figueiredo. But I saw him do it against Figueiredo multiple times. So leading up to that fight, I was like, oh, if he picks me up, I'm just going to go parallel because that's what you're supposed to do in wrestling. When you fall to the ground, it creates a scramble position instead of just flailing in the air, waiting for me to be taken down. And then it looks like Matt Hughes versus Frank Trigg, where he picks me up or runs me all the way to the other side, and then I'm just stuck. So I
yeah.
was like, oh, let me go parallel. And Dummy just wanted to still slam me, and he took himself in a really awkward position to where my legs fell on his head. So it did daze him. I just finished the job.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's important to make sure if you're gonna utilize the takedown on someone, you got to know how to land because I've seen another fight. I don't know who it was. I think they were just doing a double leg, but the guy landed. It's almost like the guy was trying to do a guillotine, but the way the guy landed, he landed inward and landed like his head went into the guy's stomach. I think. I'm not sure what, or like his head was stuck on the other side of his torso, and his head drove it to the into the mat. And I think the one guy knocked himself out, and the other guy, like I don't know, he must have gotten somewhere in the liver, and so I'm not sure if the guy.
That was I don't know the other opponent, but I know one of them was Gray Maynard. He's the one that picked him up
Yeah, I think that.
and slammed them, and it was ended up being considered like a double TKO or double knockout. So they either I can't remember if they fought again, but yeah, they called it a no contest. They're like, it's a draw. Sorry guys, we can't. You both can't continue, and they were both in pain. I think Gray was knocked out, and the other guy was just like, oh my ribs. So
Uh,
it's you I've done it in wrestling where I've gotten some really really amazing throws, and I've gotten two into it, and I'd land on my face, and then I'm like, oh my god, what happened? But I ended up winning the match, you know. But I'm just like, oh god, I almost knocked myself out. So it does happen, man. So it's part of the sport. It's just hopefully understanding the physicality of it.
yeah, definitely, definitely. Um, so are you freezing right now, or is it just
Uh I know you're frozen.
okay?
Yeah, I'm
Let me
on
just.
my side. I'm moving. I don't know if you can see me moving, but
All right, let me just see here. Sorry about that. Good thing we're not live because I hate when this stuff happens. Like sometimes it just freezes at the worst times here.
no worries.
Okay. All right, I'm just gonna keep going here, and because I don't want to take up too much more time here, but yeah, so I do definitely want to just discuss one more thing. I'm sure you probably heard about the Poirier versus McGregor 2
Hmm.
fight. It's coming in January. So I've been asking multiple fighters what their thoughts are. What do you think? Like, I mean, Poirier, a guy you probably have trained with before. I mean,
Hmm.
how do you see this fight now, 5 years later in the making?
It's funny. I talked about this yesterday in an interview as well. I've trained with Poirier. I love Poirier to death, and I'm hoping to collaborate with his foundation as well, with my foundation. But man, Poirier is such a mentally strong fighter and a much more mentally stronger fighter than what he was before 5 years ago, especially against Connor. I think he's going to be level headed for this fight, and it's going to make him that much more dangerous. The only problem is I just think Connor stand up wise is too intelligent. Poirier is exceedingly well during wars. You look at the Hooker fight, you look at the Gaethje fight. He's created some amazing fights. I just don't think he's technically sound like Connor, and Connor's very good at keeping the distance, using a straight left hand, and I just think he's a very methodical striker. You look what he did to Cerrone in one of his comebacks.
Yeah,
Um, and even against Khabib, like he probably put Khabib in the most trouble we've seen in a long time. Like he landed a lot of shots at Khabib, and was really just a little bit off on a few others. And I'm not even a Connor fan, but you have to give kudos to that. The guy knows what he knows, and I just feel that Connor's going to be able to, I'm going to say dominate this fight, but finish this fight in either the first or second round. But I think if Poirier can make it a scrap, make it a brawler type of fight, make it a like a BKFC type of fight, then awesome. That is definitely going to be his advantage, and that's where he's going to be the strongest in the fight. So if he can take it longer and be able to push the pace like Nate Diaz did, then I think he's going to be able to win. But I'm going to give this one to Connor.
yeah, and I tend to agree with that. I think with this fight, I think the problem with Poirier as well is that I mean he's honestly one of the best boxing I've ever seen. I mean he's got great boxing, great with his hands. The issue is that when he goes in these fights, he tends to take a lot of damage in fights. I mean, with the Max Holloway fight, I mean, he fucked Max up big time. But I mean, he took
Mhm.
shots too, and I think that's the problem with McGregor. Like, I know that besides outside the cage, just stuff that McGregor's done. I mean, he's probably still one of the most respected strikers in the game. And the problem, I think, is I tend to agree with you. I think Connor's going to use his distance. And Connor, if you watch how he fought Khabib, I have to agree. Um, I think with Connor, honestly, out of every person that Khabib's fought, and I think he's given Khabib the worst fight. And as much as everyone wants to trash Connor's ground game, I mean, you can't really say anything else about any other fighter. I mean, most fighters have had an issue with Khabib on the ground, and that's just how it is. I mean, Khabib's a beast. But Connor's probably the only one that's probably won a round out of any of them. Everyone else has laid on their back every fight. So it's interesting to see. And I had this conversation with my father a while back, and we talked about how is it possible that Connor, the reason why he's taking all this time off, maybe this whole thing has been just a big mind fuck, and this whole thing with him taking this time off is him training his ground game, him getting better and better, and he doesn't have to fight, so he might as well take this time off and train. So I'm really interested to see how he's going to look against Poirier, 5, 6 years later.
I don't know if he was training 100%, but knowing him, he was staying active, staying in the gym. He's still fit, obviously. He didn't do like a Tyson Fury and get up to like 300, 400 pounds. But I think he was always training. I don't know as intensely as what he once was at the time, but he's a smart businessman. He's been doing a lot of that and has been financially responsible with himself, but making a lot of poor choices when it comes to the public eye. So hopefully he's been training, and I know his ground game is phenomenal. He is good at jiu-jitsu. He is good at wrestling. The only problem is he's just faced some really dominant people where no matter how much it's like me going against Henry Cejudo, even though I was a college All-American, dude, this guy was a gold medalist in the Olympics. So
Absolutely.
more than likely, no matter how much I train for 2 months, you're more than likely going to take me down and dominate me in the wrestling game. So, when you face Khabib, again, he's dominated some high-level jiu-jitsu guys as well, and even high-level grapplers. Justin Gaethje, being a very good All-American wrestler, takes him down no problem and taps him out. So Barboza, high level jiu-jitsu as well, gets dominated on the ground. Michael Johnson, an All-American as well. So it's just one of those things. But Connor is very, very good, but I believe he's just smarter boxing wise and stand up wise against Poirier.
Mm-hmm. Just lastly though, so looking at 2020, hopefully things are going to look up for 2021. So how many times would you like to fight? How many fights would you like to get in? I mean, 2020 wasn't probably the best year for any fighters.
Mm-hmm. For me, I had one fight in 2019, one fight in 2020. So it's like, yeah, and a bunch of fights of my demons, but it's the fact of like, man, dude, I just want to get in there and fight. Plus, you look at it from a working perspective. It's like I don't technically work a 9 to 5 job, which I do technically have the same amount of hours when it comes to training and
Right.
and publicity and sponsors and all that stuff. But I'm working a 9 to 5 job. Just imagine working for 2 weeks and not getting paid. And they're like, oh, we'll pay you next week. They're not getting paid. We'll pay you next week. They're not getting paid. And then it's a month and it's 2 months and it's almost a whole year. So for me, yeah, cool. I got paid a nice lump sum in one fight. Man, I got a budget. I got to figure stuff out. I still got to hustle and make money on the side. So
Of course.
besides just fighting and having fun and playing, and for me, that's my playtime, fighting pays the bills, and I don't want to put my body through all this pain, stay away from my family who's in Chicago, hundreds of thousands of miles away from me. Losing a social life, sacrificing this, sacrificing that. I want to be able to make it worth it, and not just money, but fighting and be able to get the experience and say I can do this throughout all this crazy stuff in the pandemic would be a huge lifesaver. So hopefully in 2021 I can fight as much as possible, 3 at the minimum. But time will tell. I'm 28 and I'm entering my prime, so I just want to have a blast.
Absolutely, man. Well, I wish nothing but the best for you, Shorty. Again, I'd like to thank you for coming on the podcast, man. You've been nothing but a great guest. Hopefully, we'll see big things from you in 2021. And you take care, Shorty.
I can't wait. Thank you. I appreciate it. And you have a good rest of the day. Happy New Year.
Thank you. You too. Happy New Year's, man.